A few weeks after he won the Electoral College, Donald Trump flew to Indiana to announce that he had just saved over 1,000 jobs at the Carrier air conditioning plant. Here he is then, basking in his view of his own heroism.
We just visited 1,000 people in the factory that are going wild in the plant. But I will tell you that United Technologies and Carrier stepped it up. And now they're keeping, actually, the numbers over 1,100 people, which is so great,
In that same month, the American economy under President Obama added 156,000 jobs. The month before that, the economy added 178,000 jobs. 1,100 jobs is so tiny a number that it is within the margin of error of the Bureau of Labor Statistics count of jobs created or lost in America in any given month. And so the president could not have picked a tinier number of jobs to celebrate. And that doesn't mean that each one of those jobs isn't the world to each person who has one of those jobs. It is everything to any person who has one of those jobs. 1,000 jobs would be something for a local mayor to celebrate. 1,000 jobs would even be something for some governors to celebrate. But the president of a country with 146 million jobs, you could tell that day that Donald Trump was not satisfied with announcing his rescue of only 1,100 jobs.
Over 1,100 jobs. And by the way, that number is going to go up very substantially as they expand this area, this plant. So the 1,100 is going to be a minimum number.
So the number was going to go up because they were going to do more hiring. The head of the union representing the Carrier workers, Chuck Jones, was in Donald Trump's audience that day. He told the Washington Post that Donald Trump had, quote, lied his A off. Donald Trump has been called a liar by many people, but Chuck Jones' comment cut deep because Chuck Jones was supposed to be one of those people saying thank you to Donald Trump for saving those union jobs. So, of course, Donald Trump attacked Chuck Jones after Chuck Jones called him a liar. Donald Trump tweeted, Chuck Jones, who is president of the United Steelworkers 1999, has done a terrible job of representing workers. No wonder companies flee country. Chuck Jones responded to Donald Trump on this program.
I'm not backing up on my position one iota. He's wrong, I'm right, and we'll move on. And, you know, if he wants to keep on tweeting, I'll keep on responding. What he said was saving 1,100 jobs. That was a falsehood. In all reality, so, you know, like I said, 730 staying, and here in Indianapolis, 550 are losing their livelihood.
Chuck Jones was outraged that Donald Trump was lying to the 550 people who Chuck Jones knew were going to be laid off. He hated having to tell those union members that President-elect Trump was lying to them. He wished that Donald Trump was telling them the truth, that they weren't losing their jobs. Chuck Jones told them the truth because he knew they had futures to plan, Christmas presents to buy, budgeting to do, with the knowledge that they were going to be laid off. They needed to know that. This week, we can now officially close the file on the case of who was telling the truth, Donald Trump or Chuck Jones. CNBC reported that the Carrier Factories Union has received the official notice as required by federal law that the first round of cuts, 338 jobs, will take place on July 20th with an additional 290 employees terminated on December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas. The number of manufacturing jobs that will remain at the Carrier plant is exactly 730, precisely the number that Chuck Jones made public when Donald Trump lied about saving a minimum of 1,100 jobs. Chuck Jones didn't want to be right about this, but he was. And Donald Trump was, as usual, lying. Chuck Jones will get tonight's last word next.
Over 1,100 jobs. And by the way, that number is going to go up very substantially as they expand this area, this plant. So the 1,100 is going to be a minimum number.
Joining us now, Chuck Jones, the former president of the United Steelworkers Local 1999, which represents the carrier workers. Chuck retired last month after 26 years as president and 48 years as a member. He joins us from his union hall in Indianapolis. Chuck, these 7 months since the president was there, the official word has come to the people being laid off. Do all the individual workers who know they're going to be laid off now know that, and are they now able to plan for that?
Yeah, finally the dates were announced, and the people that are going to be affected are very aware of who they are, and they can plan their life going forward.
Is there a different feeling out there now about then President-elect Trump's visit to the carrier plant?
Well, I think at the time, without a doubt, the way he laid things out, people thought that he was going to have a job, only to find out, as you reported, the next day when we told him that wasn't the case. And I think, without a doubt now, people understand what the situation was, that he came in and did a little creative math with the numbers. And, I made some comments to the Washington Post, and I stand behind him. He did lie.
I want to listen to something else that Donald Trump said at Carrier that day. Let's listen to this.
Companies are not going to leave the United States anymore without consequences. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'll tell you right now.
Chuck, that was the tough guy talking. There are going to be consequences. Carrier's not going to be able to do anything with these jobs. Any consequences that Carrier is suffering?
No, the state of Indiana rewarded them $7 million, so I don't know how in the world that the state would give a profitable corporation money for taking jobs out of this country. But there's no consequences I'm aware of.
So, Chuck, it was your job to tell those people after the president told them one thing, you had to tell them something else. And what you had to tell them was the worst news they could possibly hear. How did that conversation go when you had to tell the workers that?
Well, people were surprised. For the most part, there wasn't any reason to not believe us. But, when you got the president-elect telling them one thing, and then all of a sudden the next day we're telling them another, they were definitely, in a dilemma where they finally went to the company, and company verified what I had said and what the union officials had said as being the right numbers.
Chuck Jones, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.